I think we need to first address the elephant in the room. How do you feel about these desks?
So I have to say, I was pretty hesitant to come on this podcast just because there's no left-handed desk. And I don't feel seen. I'm just letting you know. But as a good city employee, I'm going to bear with it and I'm going to power through this podcast. So I appreciate you inviting me.
You're very welcome.
Welcome to the Hall Monitors podcast, a podcast brought to you by the City of DeSoto's communications team, recorded right here at City Hall.
Back in the day, it was the hall monitors that kept an eye on the halls of this old school building. Now we're keeping an eye on the big projects, decisions, and stories shaping our city. So grab your hall pass and let's take a walk, not a run, through DeSoto's past, present, and future.
This is the Hall Monitors podcast. Let's get to class.
Forgot the bell.
That was the bell. Welcome back to the Hall Monitors. I'm Libby Johnson, and we're joined today by Brandon Mills, who's our Assistant City Administrator and City Clerk. In this episode, we are talking about two city resource programs designed to help the community. One that supports sustainable landscaping, and the other that just helps make home ownership more affordable. Whitney told me that you have a highly specific skill in explaining government to seventh graders. So,
Okay.
very interesting. Let's put that to the test, though.
Okay.
Can you explain your two roles for the city, and can you explain them like we're in a middle school building, like I'm a seventh grader?
Okay. All right. So I'll start with the city clerk role. So if you're talking about like a seventh grader, I guess the easiest way to explain it is I am the document keeper for the city. So anything that the mayor signs, any ordinances, resolutions, which are laws for the city, I'm in charge of making sure that those copies are maintained and accessible. I'm also the main point of contact for a lot of external organizations, such as Johnson County or the school district. I'm the main point of contact statutorily. As the assistant city administrator, my job is really catch-all. We have an administrator who is in charge of maintaining all the city functions. He's over all of our departments. And really, my job is to back him up and do anything he doesn't have time to do. So part of my jobs are, like this morning, I was talking with our fleet management coordinator, going through our next year's budget process of which vehicles we're going to work through. And then about an hour later, I was talking with our public works director about hiring someone. So my job spans lots of different departments and jurisdictions and different things. And so different every day.
It's fun. It's also hard to explain to someone, I feel like, when you're like, I do this and I also do that.
Yeah, it's different every day. I think that's the thing I like about it.
Along those lines, we actually have a listener question.
Okay.
And by that, we definitely mean we reached out to your wife and asked her if she has anything that we could
that's
surprise
fun.
you with,
Yeah.
and get some insider information.
Okay.
So this question is from Russell, your best friend from high school.
Okay.
Can you share your favorite coach memory from track, or explain what your track coaches mean to you? Because I honestly don't know what this means, but I know it has something to do with maybe how your career is going and how you approached your role.
Okay.
Maybe. What do you know?
These people have some explaining to do, first of all. You guys did your homework. That's very nice. I think one of the things I learned about in track, and I'll back up, Russell and I were really good friends from high school where we started becoming friends running cross country. I think one of the things you learn running for hours is endurance and the grit to get through things. And this job, it changes every day, right? You have adversities every day, whether that be running up a hill when you're 2 miles deep into a 3-mile cross country race, or running into a roadblock due to some kind of administrative red tape. It's something that I've learned to develop and work through as I've gone through my career. Yeah.
So in school, when it came to class projects, were you more of a let's carefully follow the instructions, or let's see what happens, we'll figure it out as I go kind of person?
Definitely we'll figure it out as we go. I've made my career on saying building the plane over in the air. Usually works out, but I'm definitely more of a go with the flow than a rigid, strict rules person.
And I think having that tie into your career and like your role, it's kind of necessary to have that ability, because you don't know what's going to happen. Yeah.
Russell and I are going to have a very long conversation about this. Sneaky guy. Anyway.
Well, the good news is whether you like guidelines or you're the type where you just want to go with the flow type of person, Contain the Rain is one of those programs that makes that kind of easy. Can you explain the program, what it is, and tell me about the history of how it got started?
So the Contain the Rain grant is administered by Johnson County. The grant encourages property owners to put in sustainable landscaping, whether that be rain barrels or whether that be planting native plants. The goal is that we are reducing our runoff and improving our overall streamway health in the community.
How long have we been doing Contain the Rain?
To the best of my knowledge, Johnson County has been having this program for well over 10 years, but we are on program year 3 starting in March.
How much of the project's costs does the program help with?
So generally speaking, it's about 50% of the overall program cost. So if you put in a rain barrel, those are about $150. The county would reimburse you and the city would reimburse you. So your total reimbursement is 50%.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. So like if I wanted to get a rain barrel, you would split that cost with me?
Yep.
It's a good deal.
Especially we see a lot of people that are really interested in that.
Yeah.
They want to plant a tree, and trees aren't cheap. So if you can get 50% off of it, it's not bad.
And is Contain the Rain a program that's open to DeSoto businesses as well?
Yes. So it's open not only to residential property owners, but it's also open to businesses. We haven't seen any yet. I'm hoping that this next program year we'll see some businesses apply. But the point is not just to reduce runoff in neighborhoods, but it's throughout the entire community.
Yeah.
So if you're a business, please apply.
What is the environmental impact of having these projects in place?
When we talk about native plants, plants that are native to Johnson County, generally speaking, have less watering requirements. So not only are we reducing the need to water, which is good for the environment, but it also, by creating rain gardens and rain barrels, it allows you to reuse some of the water that's naturally occurring in the community. So overall, it's great for the environment.
Yeah. I also saw something like when the water ends up in those storm drains and it ends up in a ditch or whatever, there's bacteria, there's chemicals, there's debris, and then it goes straight into the river or the stream or the lake. So there's a lot of benefits to it. And also these projects are really pretty.
Yeah.
Some of them are really cool.
Yeah, some of the rain gardens that we've seen, we had a couple come through in DeSoto, and they're fascinating. I'm not an engineer, but we have a couple people in DeSoto that have done rain gardens. The diagrams they have and how it flows off the properties and everything is really interesting.
Oh, I'll have to look into those. What are some of the projects that fall under those guidelines?
Yeah, some of the more obvious ones are native grasses or native bushes. Again, we're trying to encourage people to build sustainable landscaping so they don't need to water them as much. But also what we're seeing is several businesses in the area that have kind of put together their own programs. It's a plug and play situation where people are putting in native trees. I mean, there are several businesses that understand the program and say, this tree is native and this tree will get you the full reimbursement for the grant. I would say talk to your local landscape company or your local nursery, and they should be able to walk you through the steps of how to get the grant.
What does the application process look like?
So the application process is pretty simple. You can go to the city website and just type in Contain the Rain and search for that. And it'll bring you up to our program page. And then you just click a link and it'll take you to the county page, which is where you apply. And it has pretty simple explanation of you need to have your name, your address, where you live. And then it'll have a list of all the top proper plants that are allowed. And then you just fill out the thing. So you could say, I planted type A tree. And then you basically submit your receipts and click submit. It goes to the county. The county will vet it and send it to me. And then we will approve that and cut you a check.
Okay. So I saw somewhere that you have to apply before you start the project. Is that true in DeSoto?
Yes. Yeah. So you apply before, and then afterwards they make sure that you planted the tree. So it does take a little to get it. We start the program in March, but realistically, we're not seeing applications until May or June.
Okay. Is there such time frame for a project like this?
Yeah, so our program year starts in March, and we accept our last applications in November. The idea is in March, really, you're starting to see the ground start to thaw, and then by November, we don't really want you planting anything because we're not sure it's going to make it through the year. Part of the grant is that there's a commitment that you would keep whatever you plant for 3 years, and so we want to make sure it's going to survive the winter.
Okay, that makes sense. How can people find more information? You said on our website, and then are you an available contact for people who have questions?
Yeah, so on the website at the very bottom has my contact information, and you can feel free to reach out to me. Also, if you have more detailed questions, especially if you're talking about rain garden design, I would refer you to the Johnson County Stormwater Management Program. They can give you all kinds of templates and tell you the best way to put those. I'm not an engineer, so I don't want to touch that.
You're like, don't ask me about where to place it.
I don't ask me how to place it. I can walk you through the application process, tell you what to plant, but how to do the rain gardens, no clue.
No clue. All right. At least you know your boundaries, you know your strengths. So that's important. All right. So now that we've covered how Contain the Rain can help with outside property improvements, Let's shift gears into a program that can help with relief inside the home. Can you walk us through the property tax relief program and how it works?
Yeah. So the property tax relief program is a rebate program for certain targeted populations in DeSoto. So the first being low-income households, which is set by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. It's basically low income. It's done through Johnson County. So they take an overview of the whole community and basically assign incomes based on the median household income in the county. And then also we're looking at veterans. The city council just changed the policy, and we're now looking at disabled veterans at 50% disability. And then also we're looking at seniors as a targeted group. So people over the age of 65. And those property owners are now eligible for a rebate of just the city portion of their property taxes.
Gotcha. And you said that it was recently updated to include a wider range of veterans. Can you explain what that difference was? Why it didn't work like that before?
Yeah, last year was our first year. Probably should have said that. Last year was our first year as our pilot program, and we were still trying to figure out our guidelines. We set it based on some peer communities. So we looked at Merriam, Roland Park, and Johnson County to set our guidelines, and their programs were set at 100% disabled veterans, basically. So what happens is the VA determines your disability based on certain criteria, so your mobility, other things. And so we set it at 100%, which was the standard throughout the county. However, when we went back to the council actually asked us to reduce that amount to 50% to basically widen the amount of people that were eligible for the program, because the goal is to expend the full $25,000.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
it's helping more people. Yeah,
exactly. I think the goal is to spend down, so at the end of the year we have $0 left in the program. So the more people that are eligible means the more people will be able to use the funds, and that's our goal.
Yeah, and more people to help.
The interesting thing about it, and I want to give kudos to our governing body, our mayor, in the fall of 2023, had an idea to start this program. And his thought process was not only just DeSoto, but throughout Johnson County, we're seeing property values skyrocket. We have not only just low income, but senior residents who are experiencing just, multiple double-digit increases in their property taxes because their home values are increasing through no fault of their own. And what we're seeing is that their increases in property taxes are not being captured by their income. Most people aren't getting 10, 15% increases, not only in Social Security benefits, but just as a raise at work. And so the governing body decided that they would like to offer a program to relieve them from those double-digit increases. One of the peer communities we looked at had a resident who was well in their 80s. They purchased their house in the late 70s, and they purchased it for, we'll say, $50,000. That house has now appreciated, and it's well over $400,000. And so it's kind of one of those things where their income can't keep up with the appreciation. They didn't do anything to it. They just lived in the house, and over that period of time, the home values have increased.
Wow. These are things I haven't thankfully had to figure out yet. I haven't bought my first home, but it's an awesome program to have.
Yeah.
So you said the program is $25,000?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's for the 2025 year.
Yeah. The council allocated $25,000 in 2024 for the first year of the program, and we kept the program amount flat for this year.
Where does the fund come from?
Those dollars are coming directly from development fees or franchise fees that we're seeing as a result of the development in the south end of town. So if we're thinking about Panasonic and Flint development, those fees that the city is receiving is being directly put into the property tax relief fund.
That's awesome.
It's cool. It's one of those things where the city administrator always talks about, development pays for development. This is development paying to relieve taxes on our residents. So.
Yeah. How many people did it help last year, and how much money was alleviated in 2024?
Yeah, the total program was $25,000 for last year, and we awarded 55 total grants with an average award of about $452. And so we allocated 98% of it, which I'm not great at math, but it was somewhere around $600 left over in the fund at the end of the year. We were really proud and happy how successful this program was to allocate those funds throughout the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. And then you said it would cover the city's portion of residents' taxes. So first, let's talk about the city's portion of property taxes and what that is.
Yeah. So the city If you think about your overall property tax bill, the city is approximately 13% of the entire bill.
Okay.
So now that gets you streets, bridges, roads, but also it gets you law enforcement and all other city services. On an average home in DeSoto, which in 2024 was about $370,000, that was $850 of property taxes paid to the city in 2024. Our rebate program is based off $500 as a cap.
Why is it the $500 number?
Yeah, so this kind of goes into some IRS regulations, so forgive me if this gets a little boring, but the IRS would consider this rebate income. And so the threshold for the IRS to account it as income to be reported is $600. So our thought process was we didn't want to tax a tax rebate, and so our threshold is $500, and that would give you some room in case there was a refund on a water bill or something like that, that you wouldn't be taxed on that full amount.
So let's say this is something that I'm interested in. Where can I find more information?
So our city website, we just got our policy approved. We should have it up before the program starts on April 22nd. But you can always find my contact information on the city website and give me a call. I'm happy to walk people through the process.
I know you said we can talk to you on the phone. Is there any way to talk to you in person? I know residents like that. I personally like that stuff.
Yeah, so when we start the program, we do hold open houses. We're not quite ready to announce those dates yet, but within the first 2 weeks of the program, we're going to hold 3 open houses at the senior center. And so you'll have opportunities to come in, and I'm more than happy to help make sure you have the required documentation and kind of walk you through the process.
So what usually does the timeline look like for this application process?
How it works is we'll open the program, and then the public will turn their applications. There's some documentation that we need. We're going to need your tax documentation. That's how we prove your income. We look at your adjusted gross income or your AGI. And then we make sure you paid your property taxes as one of the requirements. Takes us about 30 to 45 days to process the applications just because they typically come in waves. Last year we did 55 applications and we saw somewhere around 40 of those in the first 2 weeks. Which was, it showed how popular the program was. But it does take us a little bit of time to do that processing of applications. And then our goal this year is to get those applications and checks cut within 60 days.
So why were there so many applications in the first 2 weeks?
So the program is first come, first serve, and people were very eager to do it. I wasn't here early that morning. I had an appointment on the first day of the application window last year, but I was told there was a line outside the door at 8 a.m. with people applying. It was a flurry of applications that came in.
Just briefly explain, because I know it can get complicated, how the rounds work and what do you mean by having rounds of the program?
Yeah, so our program is set up in 2 different phases. So our first phase is for low-income seniors and disabled veterans.
Okay.
And that runs from April 22nd, which is the beginning date of the program year, through August 1st. And then we have a second phase, which is open to all residents under the age of 65 who meet the income qualifications and anyone else who would meet the qualifications in phase 1. That runs from August 4th through December 1st, which is the end of the program year.
When it opens up to the rest of the community, that's with the leftover, the remaining amount.
So any funds that are left over through phase 1 would then roll over into phase 2. I would note there's a special cutout of 20% just to make sure that we do have some funding for anyone under the age of 65 to be able to apply for phase 2.
So can you share why a top reason might be that someone would be declined property tax relief in their application?
Yeah, for this next year, one of the things we might see for people being denied, their application being denied, is we do have a 1-year residency requirement now. So essentially what we're saying is you need to live in the community for 1 year because we are rebating property taxes. So this is a rebate on taxes paid in 2024.
Yeah.
And so I think that might be one of the main reasons we see any rejections is they just haven't been in the community for 1 year. Another one is we did see a couple people who just missed that income threshold. They were just slightly above it. And that income threshold is set by HUD, as we mentioned before, but it also is based on how many people are in your household. And so we did see the one application, they just missed that income threshold by a couple $1,000.
I think it's interesting, and it does make sense why you say you have to be in the community for a year, because then at that point, you'd be rebating property taxes that aren't from Minnesota.
Yeah, and it would be from a previous homeowner, right?
Yeah.
So if you just moved in the community, the person who sold you the house, you'd be getting their money back. So that's the idea, is
that makes sense.
Rebating.
Thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. Since this is the Hall Monitors podcast, we have to know where you're headed to next. Can you share some big projects or things you're working on next?
Yeah. So some of the big projects I'm working on, they just all happen to be parks related right now, but we're working on getting a contract signed and going to council with for a Riverfest master plan project. So we're looking at redeveloping that park, and we're going to have lots of public engagement opportunities for the public to ask what they want and let us know what kind of amenities they'd like to see out there. Another project that's going to be starting soon is we're building soccer fields out at Riverfest Park as well. And so we're going to have parking and soccer fields, and it's going to be a really good project because that is our most popular parks program. And then the other one that you guys may have heard of is we're asking the public if they'd like to see a community center.
Yes.
So I'm going to go meet with our consultant and talk about some of the findings from that survey.
All right.
And we'll present that to council in April.
So lots of things to keep an eye out for the Parks Department.
Yeah.
Very exciting stuff. Alrighty. That concludes episode 2.
Got it. Class dismissed.
It feels so uncomfortably close, but it looks right. Oh.
3
Does it
seconds.
look awkward that I'm wearing a vest? Does it like, you're like, why is she wearing a vest?
How are they doing it? It's so like, how can you be that loud? Those are 2 floors above us. They're banging on. That's the wild thing about it. I was just thinking about that. Yeah, I'll bring donuts. I don't care. Okay.
Let me start that over. Now that we've again,
You're all right.
3rd time's a charm. I think I just smeared a bug wing across my paper.
When did you contact my wife?
You feel like we're
I
like
feel betrayed. I feel
infiltrating.
betrayed. How did she? Okay, that's okay. It's complicated. Property taxes are
It is
complicated.
so complicated. I have juice on my paper now.
And to another change we didn't mention. That's like, yeah.
So you said, Miss Ma'am,
You good?
tell that cop to
Yeah.
calm down. Like, okay, wait. So how do we explain this? Because
Oh, yeah.
it really does go to show, like, you're not an idiot if you don't understand some of these things. Like, even I try to ask you something simple, like, can you explain the mill levy? Please don't right now, by the way.
Hey,
Don't.